Hey friends, Anne here for more Craziness Uncensored Talk. Today I want to talk a little bit about something that people have asked me a lot about, and that's possible ways to help someone with depression. So, if there's one thing that I've learned throughout my experience is that the only person who can really heal someone of depression is the person going through it themselves. They're the only ones who can ultimately lift the weight off of their shoulder, off of their chest, and bring them back into normal life. However, there are some things that family members and coworkers can do and friends can do to help make that weight just a little less so that they have a little less to deal with. So this is taken from my blog called Hopefully This Helps, and if you haven't checked that out, please do. I'll link that in the description box below. And as always, hopefully this video helps as well, and let's get started. Okay, so number one on the possible ways to help. Ask how they're doing at least twice. A lot of times the people won't be honest the first time, and asking reinforces that you support them. So we all know how the whole, hey, how are you? And then the, I'm fine thing goes, or the, are you okay? And the, like, what's wrong? And the, nothing, I'm fine goes. And a lot of times I feel like that's just because people think that when you ask them how they're doing, it's just kind of a formality. It's just supposed to be like, hey, how are you? I'm good. And then you move on to the weather or something more interesting like that. So, however, a lot of times when you're dealing with someone who has like really serious depression, they might want to talk about it or they might want to tell you how they're really feeling. They just are afraid that you don't really want to hear it. So if you ask a second time and you say, are you sure? Or it's okay if you're not okay, then the person is way more likely to open up and tell you how they're really doing. And it's really, really good to ask a second time, I think, to reinforce that you actually really do care and you actually really do want to know what is going on with the person. I mean, obviously, if they say, I'm good, like, fantastic, and you say, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, like, let's go catch a movie or something. You don't have to be like, are you sure? Because I really think you're depressed. Or, come on, like, let's be real right now. So, yeah, just ask twice and, use your judgment. If they really are fine, then, like, move on. But if you feel like they're maybe aren't fine or they maybe need a little extra um, push to tell you how they're really doing, ask a second time, and I think that it'll really help. Okay, so number two on the possible ways to help someone with depression list is give the person a hug or two, because sometimes that's all a person needs. And sometimes that really is all a person needs. A hug from a best friend or a family member, it'll make them feel like they're cared about and the other person is all warm and cuddly. And so, yeah, definitely try that if the person likes hugs. If they don't like hugs, then maybe not, but for the majority of people, I feel like a hug definitely would help. All right, so number three, talk to them. This doesn't always have to be about how they're feeling, but if you do change the subject, it's good to revisit how they're feeling afterwards because distraction doesn't always work. Talk about yourself. I want to hear about my friends' days and how they're doing. I don't like it when people keep things from me because they're afraid of how I'll react, because they think I'm too sad or fragile, etc. My friends are the absolute best, and I love them to life, and talking to them reminds me of that. So seriously, talk about yourself. The person who's depressed doesn't always want to be talking about how they're depressed because that's just depressing, right? I mean, talk about the cute guy that you saw in class or the cute girl you saw in the grocery store line. I want to hear about that stuff. I love that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, talk about how your day was. If you're having a problem, tell me about it because I want to help. Like, I want it to be a give and take friendship or relationship, whatever. It's not gonna be too much for me. I'm not too sad. I'm not too fragile. So definitely, definitely talk about yourself, please. I love that. That's like maybe my number one advice. Just please talk about yourself, not always about the person and how they're feeling. But definitely, if you do feel like they are depressed or something, revisit that at the end, but that doesn't have to be all that you're talking about all the time. And I think that'll really help. All right, so number four, listen, but you don't have to say anything back. Your friend or loved one is the only person who can fix themselves, so don't stress out about coming up with the right thing to say. You don't have to say anything. My friend's presence does enough for me, and sometimes thinking out loud just helps me. So a lot of times my friends have said, I don't know what to say. Like, I wish I had something to say. I don't know what the right thing is to say. And a lot of times there just like isn't the right thing to say. And there isn't really the wrong thing to say either. I mean, besides like some obvious wrong things. Um, but to those friends, I say I have a quote from Barbara Kingslover that says, "The friend who holds your hand and says the wrong thing is made of dearer stuff than the one who stays away." So definitely just a friend's presence really, really helps me, and I know helps a lot of people with depression. You don't have to say the right thing because a lot of times the person isn't even looking for advice. They're just looking to think out loud, and sometimes just having someone there and having someone there to support them really, really helps. So definitely try that and don't stress out about finding out the right thing to say. Right, so last but not least, encourage them to do something fun. When does an episode of The Office not work? But don't be too discouraged if they say no. Sometimes staying in by themselves and watching movies will help more than hanging out. Seriously, when does an episode of The Office not work? I mean, I've never like gone out with a friend and watched an episode of The Office and had it not make me feel better. So definitely try that if you haven't done that already. But like I said, don't be too discouraged if they don't feel like going out. Sometimes they just want to stay like I don't know. I don't want to make them sound like some diseased people, but someone who's depressed might want to stay in. Just make sure that they're not isolating themselves all the time. So that's basically it for what I have for possible ways to help someone with depression. If you have anything to add, please do in the comments below or on my blog. I'll link that in the description box below. And hopefully this helps, and I love you, and have a great day.